One of the most treasured items in our archive at the Kentucky Historical Society is Abraham Lincoln's pocket watch. You can hear it tick. From school kids to Spielberg, it definitely is a crowd pleaser. But what does it tell us about our 16th president who proclaimed, "I too am a Kentuckian"?
The Kentucky Historical Society has some really special objects with great stories of Kentuckians of note, but probably on the top of that list is a pocket watch that was owned by Abraham Lincoln. Our watch is in pristine condition. It was actually made in Copenhagen, and we believe it was sold by Tiffany & Company. So in addition to the watch, we actually have the watch chain as well with a fob on the end, and carved in onyx are the initials AL. No one knows how many watches Lincoln owned in his lifetime. We do know that there are two still existing today. One is at the Smithsonian Institution and was very well used. It has a lot of damage to it. The watch here at Kentucky Historical Society looks like something that was either purchased by Lincoln or given to him later in his life. At the time the movie Lincoln was being created, we were actually approached by Skywalker Sound. They were searching out authentic sounds to go into the movie Lincoln. It was very important to Steven Spielberg to have really authentic sounds, to have the tick of the watch as a major part of one of the scenes. And they really wanted not just a watch from the 19th century, but Lincoln's watch. Certainly a lot of museums would be thrilled to have an iconic piece like this that belonged to Lincoln, and we're so fortunate that we have it on display in our permanent gallery. Even though we don't know how Lincoln came to own this watch, it must have been special because it was passed down to his only son, Robert.
To learn more about Abraham Lincoln's pocket watch, visit us online at History.KY.gov. From the Kentucky History Centers and Museums in downtown Frankfort, I'm Doug High.